Hey,
Um,
so I was while you guys were talking, I was actually thinking about I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget. So
mm,
we were talking about like demo and speakers and stuff like that, and
yeah.
I was reminded that I went to a shop in Nashville. It's called HiFi Buys a few weeks ago. I just stopped in really quick, just curious what they had in stock, and it's a great shop. I've been there a few times, and the people that work there are really friendly. So I'm not knocking them at all. But I've also run into the same thing with other shops. So at HiFi Buys, they have a few different rooms with a few different setups, and one of the rooms has like a ton of Macintosh stuff and some Wilson audio and maybe
The
some other
typical
speakers out of
hi-fi
it.
stuff, right? Like
Yeah,
typical
yeah,
hi-fi stuff.
yeah.
They kind of have that.
Right. And it's in a really nice room, like just, the best of the best kind of rooms that you could build around. So that makes sense that that's what they're going to do in the $200,000 room. But then the other rooms that have different setups, they'll have 5 or 6 different speaker sets next to each other. And the walls are like covered in, like shelving for their AVRs and stuff. So it's not an ideal room. And there's
Uh,
2 rooms that are similar like that. And I'm thinking like when you go to those shops, you're not listening to the same room. You know what I mean? Like, so
Yeah.
it's a little bit tough, because people will say, well, I went
Yeah.
to shop A and I heard this speaker there and it sounded like this, but then I went to the other, I heard this other speaker, and they don't tell you that the other speaker was in a different room, or, the rooms are completely different between the different shops. And so it always throws me. And then the other thing that just kind of bothers me is when you go into these shops and they've got 5 or 6 different speakers and they're all stacked right next to each other. And it's like, well, that actually changes the speaker design because essentially it increases the baffle width. So you're not even really even listening to that speaker anymore. You're listening to that speaker with some modifications, and not even talking about the room, but the actual speaker. So it's just always a little bit interesting to me when you think about that. Like,
Okay.
you also have to be mindful. I
right,
really
so-
do
so-
encourage people to try to get speakers in their own house if they can.
So jumping on the tail end of that, Aaron and Joe, let's do it. What would be the ideal setting for a demo space? Would it be 10 by 10, 15 by 15 room that had its own furniture and one pair of speakers, one amp, one thing to play music? The next room, same size, same equipment, same furniture, different speakers. How many of those can we place?
I'll tell you
in
the
a
best
space?
scenario.
Do
Here's
we
the
need a
best way to do
warehouse
it.
for this?
Here's the best way to do it. It's going to
All right.
be a pain, but it's the best. If you're asking like what's the best method, would be for somebody to go and look at the different prices, right? And say like, all right, that's out of my budget. Forget that one. All right, this one is good. All right, I like that one. That's in my budget. And okay, that one's in my budget. That one's in my budget, but I don't like the way it looks. So forget that one. And then let's say you have a couple. Like, all right, pick 3. All right. And then have it kind of set up like Harman, right? Here, put it on this like thing that kind of rotates them around. And the final thing being, which one sounds the best to you?
Wait,
Right.
that rotates them
Blind
around
testing.
the speakers?
Yeah, like it'll
Speakers
switch
on
them
the
out.
platform and it rotates. Oh, no,
like
hold
a
on.
little lazy
Yeah.
Susan.
Yeah, something like
Yeah,
that.
something like that.
And then they can listen to some music, go between them, and then like, all right, that one sounds the best out of these 3.
Yeah.
And so now you've narrowed it down. It's within their budget. They like the way all of them look, and this is the one that they found sounds the best. They still might not choose it,
Mm-hmm.
but at least now they've narrowed it down into those different categories, right? I think that's probably the best way, but it's time consuming for somebody to do that. I think,
Yeah.
I don't know.
So,
What if we were able
Croissant,
to create that? What
piggybacking
if we-
off of that,
Yeah.
how about speakers that people know are amazing and put them in a great room and then a horrible room? Let's see how much the room matters. So the room matters less when it's a good design. And that's the truth. Like, so if the reflections are similar to the direct sound, then it's not going to sound vastly different from room to room. But if the reflections of the off-axis sound is very different from the on-axis sound, then it's going to vary more from room to room. So that's the other tricky part about this stuff, and why I say, like, even when you go to a listening place, let's say, for example, there's a speaker that has good directivity, and they've got panels up on the wall. Well, the panels on the wall may actually make that speaker not sound as good as it could if they just took the panels off the wall. But another speaker that has poor directivity that would sound like it has boosted highs in an untreated room might sound better in that treated room. So you buy the speakers that have poor directivity based on treated room performance. You take them home, you put them in your untreated room, and it's not going to sound the same. So you might have been better off getting the other speaker that had better directivity, right? Where the reflection sounds similar to the on-axis sound. And that's the thing. Like, there's so many little caveats into the stuff that we do that it's hard. I even forget this stuff from time to time. And when you guys are talking about it, I'm like, oh yeah, well, there's this, that, this. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
And I think most consumers just don't care, man. They're like, all right, that looks good and it's within my budget and it has bass. I'm taking it home. And that's it.
Bass. I
Let's
can't
be real,
really
though.
tell. Yeah.
You're talking about like how much does the room affect the sound versus the speaker itself? Like, which one is actually most important? And we know that they work together. But when who was I talking to? Paul Barton, I think, when he was doing a lot of the testing at the NRC with Floyd Toole, they were saying that when they put these people into a room and they do like the blind listening test, they said they throw out the first round because these people haven't gotten used to the room yet.
Yeah,
so
that makes sense.
What we end up doing is we have a database of all the different rooms that we're in on a regular basis. If we go into a brand new room, there are new acoustic properties. I mean, generally you kind of look at the shape, how high the ceiling is, and your brain kind of knows, okay, I'm expecting this. But once you start adding treatment, okay, well, this room sounds different.
Yeah.
Right. So if you go and listen there, you cannot what they call hearing through the room.
Through the room.
You can't hear through the room yet because you're not accustomed to the room yet. Yeah. So it's kind of interesting. They said that when people would listen first round, and then they'd say, "All right, go take a break, come back and listen again." They're like, "Did you guys change out the speakers?" Like, no, we didn't change. No, these are the same set of speakers. They're like, "Man, these just sound totally different," and it's because of what we're saying. That you can hear through the room. And of course, if you're going to put these speakers into your room, you definitely know your room. And so a speaker that measures well is more likely to integrate with any room better.
Right.
A bad speaker, are you saying like, okay, here's a bad speaker, but for some reason it just works perfectly with this room. It bounces off here and when it gets to you, like, oh, you got the best sound in the world. Not really. It's not really what happens, There are some speakers that work better for certain rooms, yeah, but typically the stuff that we're measuring, on axis, off axis, the directivity, these are things that'll tell you how it performs in a room. Like, how does it interact with the room itself?
Right. So, yeah. I mean, so a speaker with good directivity is more room agnostic than a speaker with poor directivity, right? Like, yes. That's really kind of what it boils down to. It doesn't guarantee that it's going to be your favorite speaker, but it's more likely to work in various rooms when it has good directivity. It's going to sound similar between rooms.
There might be some miracle like situation where this one bad speaker just works so perfectly with the room. Who knows? It just makes a perfect waveguide in the corner. So I don't know.
Maybe so.
I don't know. It's possible. I'm not saying it's impossible, but hopefully that helps, knowing that we can hear through the room.
Now, if you can't catch the show, we do have an audio version at anchor.fm/Daily HiFi. So make sure to go on over there if you like to listen to the show.